I'm Mason Mount. You're listening to the London is Blue podcast.
Unlike Mr. Christian Pulisic, I gave him an 8. Dan gave him a 9. Nick and Phil also on the 8 train. I don't know. Dan, 9 out of 10.
Well, no. Nick is rubbing his hands together for those listening to the audio, not watching the video. So I will yield time to the man from Kansas City who was rubbing his hands in anticipation to say something.
I would like to say thank you from the senator from Seattle for yielding his time. Our analysis on Pulisic will always be slightly skewed, right? Because of where he hails from and just, I think, the pride that we have that an American's playing at a really high level in the team. All right, so let's take off those glasses for a second. Objectively, when he played this season, Chelsea were more dynamic moving forward than when he didn't play. There was not another player on the squad that could do what he did and move through really tough defenses with ease. He missed a ton of time with injury. So if we're going to cash the N'Golo Kante conversation with injuries and we're going to give him a 6 for kind of the league minutes played, then I think we also have to be fair across the board in that as well. But it was clear that he was dynamic before the restart. It was more clear after the fact that he was our best player since the restart. Phil, I don't know what your thoughts are on Pulisic, even though he's not an academy grad, he's still a youngster. But to me, he genuinely vaulted into player of the year discussion, although I think I would have him third on that list personally.
Yeah, he was tremendous after the restart, and I don't think that's something that anyone should take lightly. There were something like 9 matches left to go. That's a quarter of the season condensed into a period of time that it would not have ordinarily been played in. And he had a little bit of a slow start, which is fine. You've got to allow him to integrate into a new country, into a new team, and find your feet. And I think when he scored the hat-trick at Burnley, you started to sense that he was getting there. And then 1 or 2 injuries. But what we saw after lockdown and the restart was really, really special because he was able to play at a very high technical level at high speed. And when you can marry those 2 things together, you have a chance of being very, very special because there's not many players who can do that. The other thing that I was really impressed with on his part is that he displayed a leadership that the squad lacked. It wasn't necessarily a bombastic John Terry style outgoing extrovert, but he was like, put this team on my shoulders, I'm going to carry you. And I think he's the youngest US men's national team captain ever. Is that right? You can see why he's been given that responsibility from an early age. He was able to elevate himself to the next level towards the end of the season. And I think it's really, really exciting to see what comes next.
Dan, the Liverpool moment where he scores the goal and he just get off me, that to me was like, all right, well, you're here now. You're here to stay.
Well, the goal versus City too, to have the determination to chase the ball, not knowing if if he doesn't chase that ball, he doesn't place it past Ederson the right way, that match goes a completely different way. So his ability to impact the game, offer something different, I think things that he can improve upon for next season, not getting dispossessed quite so frequently. I think the thing is he is going to always be a little bit more ruthless in the way that he attacks. And so you're going to have to deal with dispossessions at times where he's going to try to cut through 4 people and go actually take the shot on goal, which again is something we didn't see a lot of with the, some of our prior attackers who maybe tried to kind of play it off or maybe not be as selfish. And so, with Hakim Ziyech coming into the team, with Timo Werner coming into the team, with maybe others potentially too, he's going to have outlets that are going to be just as creative as he is. And so maybe you will get a little bit more of that back and forth next season, but ultimately, just best goal tally for him in a season ever, into the Premier League for the first year at Chelsea, dealing with injuries. Sky's the limit. It's fantastic.
The best thing for Christian, especially that we saw this season, is he's always at the back post reliably if that ball makes it to him. We've seen that ball flash across the box too many times in the last few seasons. He's reliably on the back post waiting for the ball to sneak out.
He's gonna feast next year.
Well,
He's
exactly.
Gonna feast.
Exactly. So I think we take the scores of this season with the context and look ahead, and there's a lot of really good signs. Someone who had more of an indifferent season, Callum Hudson-Odoi, obviously coming off of a ruptured, I always want to go to ACL because that's the most common one, but Achilles. I gave him a 5, Dan gave him a 5, Nick 4, Phil 6. We know he gets the +1 there. Phil, I mean, I'd pretty much just throw it to you. I think indifferent is probably the best way to describe it for Callum. But what's your kind of analysis and take on it?
Yeah, it was a frustrating year. Again, he was injured coming into the season. He came back from his Achilles injury for the development squad 5 months to the day, and that's almost unheard of. I know his version of the injury wasn't as severe as Loftus-Cheek's was, but it's one thing coming back after 5 months, but the next 3 to 4 months are still him feeling his way back into match fitness. And I don't think he did anything wrong this year. I just think that there weren't enough opportunities for him to build up momentum. When he was on the pitch, it was mostly the cup competitions, and he produced at least one high-quality chance, whether he made it himself or whether it was an assist for somebody else. He was generally productive, but he never quite got going. And I think there's too much of a narrative about Callum off the pitch affecting an appraisal of what's going on the pitch, because he had the controversy. Is he going to Bayern? Is he not? Is he earning too much money? Is he not? None of that stuff really matters. He's still extremely young. He's still a teenager. And yes, we had sky-high expectations going into the season. I think they were slightly unfair. Hazard's gone. Pulisic is new. Is Hudson-Odoi the golden boy? Because of so many good things we'd seen from him up to this point before injury. And I wouldn't go so far as saying we should just consider this season a wash and start over next year, but I think being a full year off of his injury now, match fit, let's see what he's going to do next season.
3 goals and 6 assists too across the 33 appearances he made as well. So, and you know, the preseason friendly we played against Byron, he definitely had a good bit of a shot on him there too. So he definitely looks like he's finding form at the right time, where, you know, Pulisic is potentially going to be out for the start of the next Premier League season, and he's going to get an opportunity to really put his stamp on the team here, Nick.
Yeah, I wish I could ignore some of the off the field stuff, Phil. And I think maybe the points on transfers and, you know, some of that stuff is valid, but then, you know, some of the kind of other things that happened, especially around, you know, kind of the break in COVID and some of the kind of less cool things. I think my hope for him would be that he, whether it's within the squad or outside of the squad, has some sort of mentorship available just in transitioning to kind of becoming a full adult. I remember myself at 19 years old and how much of an idiot I was. So I will allow a certain amount of grace on this, because I wouldn't hold anyone to a standard I wouldn't follow myself. But my hope is, you know, his talent is so obvious that he gets a mentor, or Frank's able to kind of break through to him, that he's really world class at that point. And I think that's the jump that maybe needs to happen.
Yeah. The good news is we've got a lot of room for him to grow and develop, but it's on him to do it. Then lastly, the one we have here is Tammy Abraham, 7 from Dan, I, and Phil. Nick with the 8. Nick, over to you for Tam.
He drastically overperformed my expectations. So this is a me comment more than a, you know, kind of we. But I think back to the beginning of the season and the excitement that we were all feeling around him kind of getting into the league. There's just a kind of pure striker aura around him, Phil, that I think is, I hope he's able to mold into being a more well-rounded striker. So I'm really pleased with how he started the season. Obviously, he needed to end it a little bit better than he did, but injuries and kind of getting worn down in the beginning might have contributed to that.
Yeah, there were a few things to say about Tammy. First, I said it, I think just after he'd finished his Bristol City loan, that he is a small striker in a big striker's body. He is not a Giroud target man. Now, he's 6'5" and has the frame to put on more mass. he can become that if we want him to. But he's at his very best when he's able to make short darting runs to or from the near and far posts, or play on the shoulder, or be a nuisance to defenders. We saw it as far back as the European Super Cup against Liverpool. He did not give Van Dijk a moment's rest, and Van Dijk doesn't often come up against somebody that big with that level of mobility. So we are, as I said a few minutes ago, we're scratching the surface with what he can become. But to expect his hold-up play to be world-class levels this young for a player who isn't really that sort of player is unfair to him. But there are two stats that really reveal how good of a season he had. And I'm not a massive fan of stats because they're a bit like a ventriloquist dummy. You can make them say whatever you want. But he was third behind just Gabriel Jesus and Sergio Aguero for non-penalty goals per 90 minutes in the Premier League. Nobody else. And among players 22 or under in Europe, only Sancho and Mbappe scored more non-penalty goals than him. And I think when you take the context of that, he had a fantastic season. We would have liked to see it a bit more consistent from January through to July, but the body of work speaks for itself.
I think you can also appreciate all the different types of goals he scored. Like we saw right foot, left foot, head. We saw, shots from, I wouldn't say distance because he's usually in the box, but from all different angles and close and range. I remember the Arsenal goal where he, kind of feinted to his right, turned and smashed in at the near post. So yeah, I think again, the body of work is a good way to kind of frame it up and say he did a lot. And he ran himself into the ground. He is so committed to this club. He's willing to do anything, including put his body on the line, play through injury when he maybe shouldn't have, but we needed him at those times. So again, that's that Cobham commitment that you don't get from other players because he's been at the club for so long and it means so much more to him than maybe another player. So that's what I get excited about Tammy. And again, I gave him a 7 just because it easily could have been an 8 if he would have had a little bit more consistency. But again, massive first season in the Premier League. I mean, that was a big jump, taking the number 9, and he filled those shoes.
Just remember, it's also the first season in the Premier League for Chelsea. He did have that loan at Swansea, which we probably won't reference too much because this was a much better showing for him. And I think to his credit, he we don't. I think Nick made the comment like we don't finish 4th if Giroud didn't come in or if Pulisic didn't come in. Tammy was the first person to get us kind of locked into 3rd with the contributions that he had. So anytime you can get someone who's close to 20 goals a season, it's a really hard ask in the Premier League. And so just like Pulisic, I think sky's the limit.
I do hope, to Phil's point, that he does kind of build out a little bit more from a body shape perspective, not because I want him to be, Didier Drogba or whatever. That's not the point. I think
Akinfenwa.
He doesn't need to be a bodybuilder, but he does need to be a little bit more durable. Coming up against the Van Dijks of the world or Lewis Dunks or the players that are really going to try and put an elbow into your back every time that you kind of back in. You're going to have to be stronger to make it through a full 40 to 50 to 60 matches next year. I mean, you saw the Premier League schedule. It is as condensed can be. So that's my hope for him as he builds out. And that's my hope for a lot of our kind of younger players who are maybe on the leaner side. Is you're going to have to be kind of ready for battle next year.
Yeah, just something that keeps striking me about the younger players in general to finish off with. You don't expect it from them too young. But as you grow, you want to see a little bit of nastiness about them. You want to see them – you don't want to see them become dirty, but you want to see them get in there and say, no, hold on a minute. You're not going to boss me around. I'm going to give as good as I get. I'm going to be a little bit snide where I need to. You've seen bits of it here and there from Mount. He's got it in him. And you just want to see it come out a little bit more with each passing season from these guys as they ascend from newcomers to the squad to hopeful leaders.
Reece already has it for sure.
I think Reece just fumbles into it. It's just because he is just so dominant physically that he kind of just people bounce off him and then they're broken on the ground. I think that's a good point though. Yeah, I'd love to see the way that Giroud kind of gives it a little bit more, that's something he can pass on to Tammy, and likewise there are others who can pass those traits along to their understudies.
Yeah. Well, overall, we just did enough to get across the line. These are the player grades. These are the reviews. Let us know what you think. Obviously, there's a lot to react to. A huge thanks, Phil, for coming in, especially with the academy perspective and with all those young players. Super brilliant. If you're not following at Chelsea Youth, you're definitely in the minority if you're not following. But again, thanks for all the time, Phil.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Dan, Nick, gentlemen, it's been a blast. Listeners, though, you are the most important part of this. So we want you to tweet at us, comment on Instagram, email us, get in touch. Best way is through our Patreon on the Discord server. But that's going to wrap us up for this episode. Thank you so much for listening. And until next time, Chelsea fans, you know what to do. Keep the blue flag flying high.